Hey guys, I know it's been a while since you heard my voice, but you know what? We're starting a new unit, and this is the way I like to get started, so I figured it would be a good time to get back into things with you. We are about to embark upon the Holocaust unit, which is quite honestly one of my favorites of the year. So I'm trying to be a little bit more hands on with this one, despite the fact that we've been told to be a little bit more relaxed with you guys. We'll see. You're honor students, you're seminar students, you need to be challenged. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through my typical introduction, which is this awesome slideshow. Sort of customized it myself. And we're going to see if I can't get you to understand some of the basic foundational things that go into the Holocaust and the unit that we're going to be going through. I'm still trying to find how to do night, but we're going to make it happen because the book is fantastic. It's only 80 pages long, and it is worth every minute of reading. Anyway, starting right now, we're talking about the Holocaust, which, as you can see on this front page, this is the definition typically associated. Now, remember that the Holocaust was a time in history, and that term was a previously already existing term. Like the word Holocaust was not new, and in fact, it's because it already had this previous existing definition of a great or complete devastation, usually by fire, that it was applied to this time in history. The image in the background here is actually from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. That's what this link is down here. I've also linked it on my Power School Learning page because it is a phenomenal resource. And this is from the museum in Washington. It's sort of showing the facelessness and the lack of identity that all these people, well, in this case, all Jews and the people in the concentration camps would have suffered through. What we're going to be talking about, though, and one of the most important pieces here, is that the Holocaust was a state sponsored, meaning that the government of Germany was responsible for it. Systematic persecution. And systematic is highlighted there because that means there was a system. It was done intentionally. There was thought and logic put into it. It was done with goals in mind, and the goals were more or less achieved. So it is a persecution and annihilation of Jews. And notice it's not just Nazi Germany, it's also several of these countries working together from 1933 to 1945. So, in a relatively short period of time in terms of history, 12 years only, a lot is going to go down. Now, the Jews were the primary victims, and we're going to see that 6 million Jews were murdered. But notice they were not the only victims. We're also going to be seeing gypsies, handicapped people, Polish people. They were also targeted for a various number of reasons, and more, including homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, prisoners of war, meaning people they were fighting against that got captured, but also political dissidents. And I put that term in highlight there because a dissident is just someone who disagrees with what's going on in the current system. In our world today, there are actually many dissidents right now. People who think that maybe we should not be shut down anymore thanks to the virus. They're considered dissidents, or people who disagree with, any kind of governmental thing. It doesn't necessarily require tyranny, but notice that tyranny was what they were calling the Nazi regime. And usually death was what you got if you were any of these things. If you were put into a concentration camp, you were going to suffer, and most likely you were going to die. But let's talk about how that all came to be, how it started. And here we have a nice little Star of David, sort of a ornament. And what I want you to know is that the most important thing, and perhaps the most often overlooked, is just the political charisma of Adolf Hitler. He was a phenomenal speaker. People say that he was one of the top of the century. Like, he's right up there in terms of people would go and listen to him just to hear him speak. They would go places where he was expected to be because they wanted to be around him. He was charismatic. Even the ideological enemies of Hitler had to admit that he was a gifted and prolific speaker. Like, he had such a huge impact on the German people, even those who didn't enjoy his message, because he was just a great orator. Now, he used that charisma to also increase the nationalistic fervor of his time. Nationalism is the idea like that your country is the best and everybody else should get in the back of the way. And nationalism is the concept like Americans had it not long ago. If you don't like America, then get out. America's the greatest. God bless America and no place else. That's an idea that's nationalistic. And it was whipped up into this fervor that a fervor is like an extraordinary sort of enthusiasm. Sometimes it verges on violence. So they had that. He was talking about how we need to make Germany great again, and Germany is the greatest place on earth, and God bless Germany. Even though we've suffered, we can come back because we are Germans. And yes, he was using that kind of terminology. He had an idea, and it's sort of scary how it's come back. But he also talked about the Jews. He recognized a scapegoat for his plans to really work out, and he knew that an easy place to do that would be the Jews. People already hated the Jews. There were centuries of bigotry and racism, and anti-Semitism is a word that I'm not making up. Anti against Semite Jew. It is a word specifically meaning hatred of Jews. And that word has existed for hundreds of years. Think about that. It is a centuries old bigotry, meaning people have hated Jews because they were Jews for a very long time. And that sort of led up to World War One. Now, historically speaking, Germany did not do very well in World War One. They were on the losing side. They had lots of problems. They were, and they felt, in the right, but they lost, and they thought there was some sort of betrayal, especially once the Treaty of Versailles was put into place. Now, the Treaty of Versailles was the winning powers from World War I coming in and basically putting punishment upon the losers. Germany was one of those, and Germany had to pay a huge amount of reparations to the people, the countries that they were bested by. So in other words, not only did they lose a lot of life, but they also had to end up paying a lot of money, and those payments continued through the year 2000. Like, we're talking about a long time here. But not only that, you'll also see that they were not allowed to have any kind of military, so they were not allowed to defend themselves. So they were hit in several different fronts. And what ends up happening as a result of that is this gigantic depression. Not talking about like the American Great Depression, but very similar. Germany just went through it before we did, and that is because their economy, their problems were basically just ignored by the rest of the world. Germany had no economy, had no way to defend itself, and everyone else thought they were just the bad guys because they had fought in this war to end all wars. The Great War was what it was called. It was not always World War One, because that would imply there was a second one. And at that time they thought there would never be another thing like it. So you want to see what that looks like, go look at the new movie 1917. And that's a very good depiction of World War One. Now, what did Germany do about all this? Hitler, being his charismatic self, he started trying to spin some propaganda. He said Germany should not have lost. In fact, we wouldn't have lost except we were betrayed. Betrayed by who? Going back to that racism, going back to the Jews. It's all about the Jews. We were betrayed. We deserved to be better than this. So it's going to come down to anti-Semitism. And you may be asking, why the Jews? And that is a wonderful question. And we're going to pick up on that a little bit later with the next video.